Good evening, Aston Villa fans, and welcome to the Forever podcast. I am your host, Chad Williams. Before we get started, if you are new, subscribe. Subscribing is completely free. It doesn't cost anything. Also, subscribe if you want Aston to finish in the Champions League. This will massively help me out. It'll keep growing. I've got 800 subscribers now, which other loyals do. Or you can follow me on all audio platforms, wherever you get your podcast from, including Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. This evening, I'm joined by my special guest, Alex Conrad, who is an Australian Aston fan. He's on the podcast, on a football podcast, and also a Fox Sports Australian reporter. Good day, how are you?
Good, mate. Chad, how are you?
Yeah, really, it's a pleasure to have you on this show.
It's great to be here. Thank you very much for letting me jump on.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad we organised it. And it's actually autumn.
Yeah, it is. It's been raining outside for the past few days, and it's starting to get into winter, so it's getting a little bit colder. But that's my favourite season. Get to wear hoodies, warmer clothes, stay in bed a little longer. So yeah, it's great. It's nice to come out of the very hot Australian summer.
That's because Australia on the opposite seasons for the UK.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of weird how it's all flipped, and it's something that I sometimes forget when I think about England and overseas countries, but it's a nice change.
I'm disappointed after last night's results. We gave it a good go.
Yeah, it was a tough game. I think personally I wasn't expecting much from it with Ollie Watkins out, and then when Emi Martinez dropped out with illness, and Olsen isn't exactly he's not the number one goalkeeper, and he's had a few shaky moments throughout his Villa career, but I thought he was actually terrific, and the rest of the team put in a massive shift. Unlucky to concede the second goal, and then Phil Foden sort of masterclass from Man City, and he's just a brilliant player. But I think what we did see from the Villa players last night in terms of some of the second team guys and the younger boys was really promising, and should hold us in good stead for the rest of the season.
Well, the Etihad is the place to go. The place.
Yeah, the atmosphere at the Etihad was a bit of an interesting one. It always is, but it seemed like last night they were especially fired up, given they just witnessed the goal story against Arsenal. So they also knew how big a victory would be for their own title aspirations, and we all know how close this season's title race is. So it was an interesting atmosphere at the Etihad. But I think towards the end, once it was 3-1, 4-1, there was only ever going to be one winner, and the atmosphere kind of cooled down a little bit.
Because even though we last night, it don't fly our season.
No, not at all.
Position.
Yeah, we've only got still a handful of games to go, and it's really all to play for. I think we've got a terrible record at the Etihad anyway, so I don't think anyone was really, even if we got a draw, that would have been a massive result. So I don't think it's definitely not a result that defines our season. And even up until half time, and when Douglas Luiz had that great chance in the second half, it was just what could have been. But at the same time, I think, yeah, we look at it, bad result, we move on. The only negative is the goal difference from that game. That's the only bad thing about it.
On that team sheet, without Martinez, John McGinn, and Watkins, it's going to be always a task.
Yeah, having John McGinn back is going to be absolutely massive. And he's back against Brentford, so he'll be a massive help, especially for that midfield. And I think we've missed a lot of his energy in there, and that energy helps drive the rest of the team forward and lift the standards. So I think it's going to be massive as well. Even though John Duran's not our top striker, I thought he was really good against City. He's so unpredictable. He's chaotic. He brings a little bit of X factor that, even though Watkins is our best striker by far, there's certain things that John Duran brings into this team that Watkins just doesn't. So I think if he has to start again against Brentford, I think that type of game could be perfect for Duran against a team who's, Brentford, who just haven't been doing that great this season. So if Watkins comes back, great. If it's Duran up front, I'm perfectly okay with that, because he's going to bring something special, and the fact he scored against City is going to give him plenty of confidence.
Well, we're going to get into the interview then. So how did you get your job at Fox Sports Australia? How did it about?
So I joined Fox Sports in 2022, which now in 2024 seems like it was so long ago. And it's been a fantastic 2 years that's really flown by. I actually interned with Fox Sports in 2019, in June through to August. And sort of a funny story, I was only meant to do 1 week as an intern in June. And then I just kept asking. I was like, "Oh, do you mind if I come back the next week?" Because it was an unpaid internship. So I figured, you know what, just keep asking until they don't want me anymore. So what was meant to be just a 1 week sort of work experience internship kind of program, I ended up just staying around for a bit over 2 months. So that was it was a really fun experience. So I met the editor at the time of the website and stayed in contact over the next few years. As I went back to university, had a few other jobs in between, which weren't exactly in the field of sports journalism, and then joined a sort of like a wire service, which means companies can sort of use our copy for newspapers when they want. So joined them in 2021 in May, and it's in the same sort of overall company as Fox Sports. So I'm still working somewhat closely with the editor now, and he reached out November 2021, wanted me to do a bit of freelance work for them, and did that over 1 weekend. And then the next day, he said that, if you'd like to join our team, we've got an opening. We think you'd be a really good fit. And I decided, I'll make the jump, and it's been great fun ever since. Football articles, all different sports really. But it's great fun. It can be a bit hectic at times, and you do work weekends, which is unfortunately sort of part and parcel of being a sports journalist. But it's great. I wouldn't change it for the world.
With Fox as well, it's a well-known company. It's a good company to call.
It is. It's actually quite a funny one. So Fox Sports in America and Fox Sports here, we don't really have a lot to do with each other, which is funny given. We're both the same name. So I don't know if that's always been the case, but I think during the Women's World Cup, when that was on in Australia last year, we had like a section of the office dedicated to Fox Sports USA. So maybe there is a relationship there after all, and I'm just none the wiser to it. But yeah, it's not. We don't really do too much with Fox Sports in America. It would be nice to, because they're obviously a massive company and do so much on a larger scale for sports all across the world. So it'd be interesting. I don't know if there's a relationship there, but from my point of view, I don't have much to do with Fox Sports in the States.
Well, my dad's friend It is in Adelaide. What part are you from?
So I'm in Sydney in Australia.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's a great place, beautiful place as well.
Yeah, it's lovely.
So what journey it's a career path you always wanted.
To be honest, I'm very fortunate in terms of always wanting to, like, I've always known exactly what I wanted to do since I was about 14 or 15 years old. I knew quite quickly that I wasn't going to be a professional athlete, was nowhere near good enough for that. But I desperately wanted to be involved in sport. Or I just had to be involved in sport. I couldn't imagine a career outside of it. So I thought, okay, what's the best way where I can, try and use my best talents in terms of writing and sort of storytelling and combine it with sport. So I thought sports journalism, that's the best way to do it. And so growing up, there were obviously kids who had, they weren't really sure what they wanted to do, where they wanted to go. And I've been very fortunate that I knew very early that sports journalism was the career I desperately wanted to do. And I always stuck to that through university. And then afterwards, I took a slight career sort of detour after university, which I didn't really enjoy. I just sort of needed something, any job to get going. And then got into sports journalism in May 2021 and then been in ever since and don't want to change at all.
But what journey it's a fascinating industry.
Yeah, it's a very big industry, and it can be quite difficult at times because you're sort of dictated by other things. You rely on the stories to sort of not necessarily always to come to you. You got to go out and seek those stories sometimes, but also you're reacting and setting the agenda based on what happens in a game. So Ollie Watkins' goal scoring form. That's the big story. And if something comes from a game, those are the stories that sort of you get to cover, and it's presented to you. And if it's a quiet bit of work as well, then you can go out, set your own stories, find your own angles, work out exactly what you want to do. So that's a good part about being at Fox, is where you get a little bit of free reign. Obviously, you're dictated by the news cycle and making sure everything on that front is covered off. But you also obviously get the opportunity to really let loose and have a bit of fun, interview who you want, and where there's going to be a cool story that maybe people don't know about. That's sort of my favorite part of the job. And yeah, it's fantastic. I'd sort of wake up sometimes and just like, wow, it's, even though some days are very early in terms of the wake up calls, it's fantastic.
You sound very passionate about it as well.
Yeah, I try to be. I think it's just, sometimes on the days that aren't as fun, I just try to remember, like, this is not many people get to live out their dream career of, talking to athletes and things like that. So for me, it's just a case of, okay, if it's a bad day, just, you can accept, you're always going to have bad days, and no matter what job you have. But I think for me, it's just a case of, this is the dream career that you always wanted. And just, how lucky I am to be in that position where, some people, never get to live their dream careers no matter how hard they try. So just to always sort of think about that a little bit. And then obviously it doesn't, change my day and it becomes, amazing from then on out. But it's just sort of always important to take stock and, remember why you want to do something, and what the passion was behind it. So I think it's just something, a bit of a mentality that I've really learned and appreciated in the past sort of year or so. But yeah, I think it's great, and I love being a part of it.
And what is your favourite part of the job?
Oh, there's a lot. I think it would be just speaking to athletes, because we've all sort of, you see them do what they do on TV, and these guys are the best, some of the best in the world at it. And I've spoken to people across all different sports, so football, cricket, tennis, rugby league, all different sports, and everyone. What I've learned is, everyone, even outside of sport, everyone's got their own story that deserves to be heard. And it's about trying to, some athletes aren't as talkative as others, especially in certain sports. So I like the challenge of being able to unlock these guys and try and dig a little deeper and find more about them than other people have. So that's like a little challenge I always try and set myself, is find out something about an athlete or an individual that no one else knows about whenever I try and interview them. So it's a good little lesson I've picked up, and I definitely, think it's just such a cool part of the job. And that was something that, the younger version of me that desperately wanted to become a sports journalist. It's just sort of nice to look back and think, that part of me when I was younger is achieving that dream.
I bet you've done some very interesting interviews.
Unfortunately, none with actually. I'm trying to think if I've done with any Villa players over my time. I don't think there has been, unfortunately, which is kind of sad. That's something that I'm gonna find. Hopefully, gonna get someone soon. Joe Gauchi would be awesome. The Villa goalkeeper who joined in January from Australia.
What do you reckon to him?
Unfortunately, we haven't seen him too much. I think, maybe on another day he could have started against Man City ahead of Olsen, but I think that's clear that now he's the third goalkeeper. But he's a fantastic talent. I'm really, really excited for hopefully next season for him to get a little bit of game time, at least in pre-season too, because I think traditionally third choice goalkeepers in England are either really old or really, really young. But Gauchi arrived he's a Socceroo Australian international, was playing loads for Adelaide in the A-League, and was, I would say, the best goalkeeper in the league. So for him to go from there, and we've had a lot of goalkeepers come from Australia overseas and succeed. So for him to be third choice at the minute, I think is an interesting experience for him. But I think with the training and what he's learning from Emi Martinez and Robin Olsen, two seasoned professionals with loads of international caps to their names, I think he's getting a terrific experience, and he's going to be all the better for it. And I think we'll see a lot more of him next season.
But he seems like a very talented prospect.
He's got a similar sort of style of goalkeeping to Emi Martinez in terms of he's tall, good in the air. He's very good at penalties as well, which that's, everyone knows that's Emi's specialty for what he did with Argentina in the World Cup. So I'm excited to see him get going, and hopefully he can adapt to English football, because it is a different beast altogether, and unlike anything he's faced in Australia.
Not Matt Ryan.
Yeah, Matty Ryan. He's won. He's faced Villa twice this season in the Conference League for Alkmaar. Yeah.
Yes, I was going to say to you, it like to work for sports.
It's great fun. I'm not going to lie, the working on weekends isn't as fun, and sometimes you do have to do very crazy hours in terms of working late into the night or very early in the morning. I remember covering the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. When the Socceroos were playing, it would be 2 a.m. in the morning, and so you'd start at, say, 7, 8 p.m. at night time, and then you'd finish about 5 a.m., 6 a.m. the next morning. So you'd be very, very tired. I slept very well, but my sleep schedule was all over the place. So I think it's in any job, you're going to have days and times when you think to yourself, I'd just rather be asleep and I don't want to do this, but it's fantastic, and I love it. It's a really, really good team, and my editors are really supportive of my ideas, and it's a lot of fun. It's great.
You sound like you got a good team behind you.
Yeah, it's great, and like a lot of people within the team itself are big football fans, and so we probably don't cover football as much as we'd like, because In Australia, like we're dominated by NRL, AFL, and then cricket in the summer, as well as a bit of the tennis. So unfortunately, it's hard for football to sometimes break through. But this season in the Premier League, it's been wild, and there's so many narratives at all ends of the Premier League table. So we've got a little bit happening that's starting to break through in terms of the narratives. And then last year with the Women's World Cup in Australia, that was massive. The whole country got swept up in the Matildas fever, and it was fantastic to watch. So there's definitely moments where football has its place. But yeah, across the team, where they're all very supportive of letting football ideas and stories come to the table. And I've got one in the pipeline with an Aussie youngster he's 21 years old, and he's been he started for Brighton in the FA Cup in their 5th round FA Cup tie against Wolves. So I've got a story on him coming out in the next few days, hopefully, depending on when it's sort of the best time to make it live. But really excited for that one to come out. So football, yeah, I've tried to sort of make it my own little thing for Fox Sports, and it's great.
I'm going to ask you the next question. So, the I-League, what is the I-League like compared to?
It's an interesting sort of league. I'm trying to find the right words to describe it. It's chaotic at the best of times. There's the football in itself as a product is actually great. I think it's something that a lot of people tend to overlook, even overseas, because we've seen a lot of guys from the A-League in recent seasons move overseas and do quite well. There's a lot that have moved weirdly from Australia to Scotland. I think it's a byproduct of the Ange Postecoglou effect at Celtic when he was there. And I think a lot of people sort of sat up and took notice of, okay, this Aussie manager is actually great. How about the players? And so, he's at Spurs now, and it's great that Australian football's starting to get noticed for once, because there's a tremendous ton of players here with a lot of potential, and they're getting a lot of minutes, which is crucial for young players. And so lots are in Scotland and doing quite well there. And then an A-League manager who was the manager of the Central Coast Mariners last season. He led them to a league title, and he's moved to Hibernian in Scotland. There's Aussies there. There's Aussies at Hearts. Don't think there's any at Celtic or Rangers anymore. Oh, there's Marco Tilio, who is at Celtic, but he's on loan in the A-League now. He had a few injury issues and needed to come back to Australia to get a bit of game time. But the A-League itself is great. There's actually been talk of Villa's owners and their V Sports in terms of them wanting to invest in a new A-League team, but that's interesting. Haven't heard much about that since it sort of first was revealed. And it would be, they didn't want to own a team, they want to help fund it. They don't want to be the only party funding it. And that would be Canberra, which is Australia's capital. And so there's a lot of sort of off-field issues in the A-League, which is how it's sort of known in Australia. It doesn't really get a lot of airtime in terms of, news publications for its on-field stuff. It's a lot of off-field issues and trying to find owners for clubs and financial issues and all that kind of jazz. But the A-League itself, it's come a long way from when it first began. We've had a few Villa players over the years. We've had the likes of Dwight York, Emil Heskey's come over.
Great.
Yeah, Mark Bosnich was here for a little bit. I'm trying to think if there's been any. I'm going to forget someone. I always do. But there's been a fair share of players. I mean, even Joe Lolly's out here at the minute. He's a Villa fan. Formerly at Huddersfield and Nottingham Forest. He plays for Sydney FC, and he's tearing up the league. So there's been a little bit of Villa over the years in the A-League, but not as much as I guess I would have liked.
And do you follow?
I'm a Sydney FC fan. Yeah. I went to their first ever game against Melbourne Victory, and Dwight York scored in that game. I think I was about, I think 7 or 8 years old back then, and I'm 26 now. So it's been a long time since. But Sydney's been they started very strongly, won the first ever A-League, and then have been sort of up and down in the seasons that went by. Won another grand final in 2010, and then a few years where they weren't so great, and then I think they picked up at around 2015 and been one of the league's best ever since. Had a run of winning, I think it was two grand finals in 3 years, something very similar to that, and they've been one of the league's best from that moment onwards.
And do you attend the game? You go to even the matches?
I try to get to as many as I can. Sometimes it doesn't work out when I've got work shifts, so I'll be working on a Saturday afternoon or a Friday night, or even a Sunday as well. So sometimes the timing can be a little bit unfortunate, but I've always tried to go to games whenever I can. Went to the Australia's version of the FA Cup final, and it's weirdly that happens sort of before the season even begins. And so I think they play one game of the A-League season, and then it will be the Australian FA Cup final. So Sydney FC played in that, won it. And that was a great sort of spectacle, which was sort of fresh off the back of the Women's World Cup. So football fever in Australia was really starting to take hold. And so it was a great attendance, great atmosphere, and a lot of fun. As for attendance, when I was younger, I always used to go to the games. I think I had a crazy record of attending some seasons, but now, with work, unfortunately, I can't get to as many games as I would like.
So the Australian women's team are quite good.
Got a very good national team.
Look at England and beaten.
Yeah, it was. I remember that game. Unfortunately, you guys did beat us. But I think Australia we gave a good account of ourselves. It's funny because we play a lot better against teams who like to have the ball, and we're very good at counter-attacking, and that was what we did well at the World Cup, and how we got to the round of 16 was that sort of counter-attacking football. But when we play against teams who like to sit back, and that's a lot of teams that we come up against in Asia, they like to sit back because we're such a dominant team. We've got technically much better players than them, fitter, stronger. So they like to sit deep, and that's where we sort of struggle against those types of teams. So we do have a very good team. We've got a manager who's very passionate about the Australian team, and he's been with us since, I think, just after the 2018 World Cup. And he's great. I don't know if he'll go back to club management or what his next move will be. He's contracted until the 2026 World Cup, and I can see him, his name's Graham Arnold, I can see him sticking around till then. But afterwards, it'll be interesting to see what plays out. But until then, I think we're a very strong team, and with the World Cup expanding from 32 teams to 48, I think qualifying will be a lot easier for us. So I'd expect us to qualify, and then once we get to the World Cup, that'll be a different story altogether as we come up against the best in the world.
I'm very intrigued to know this. But what do you support Aston Villa?
Oh gosh, I've been asked this question so many times, and it's always weirdly an answer that not many people would expect. So I remember watching a Premier League highlight show when I was about 5 or 6 or 7 years old, when I was very, very young, and I remember watching Lee Hendry scored an absolute screamer against Everton, and I don't know why that just clicked with me and resonated. But I remember watching it, and I was thinking, this guy is so cool. He's the best. I'm going to support him. I'm going to support Aston Villa, which is obviously the team he played for and spent so many years playing with. And then from that moment since, it's just, they've been my team. I couldn't explain why. I just felt so drawn towards Lee Hendry and Aston Villa, but that was sort of the moment, and just fell in love with the club. I got my first ever jersey. I think it was from the 2003-04 season, when they were first sponsored by Hummel, and it was, I don't think my auntie got me the jersey because she would be back and forth between London, and I don't think she could find a child small jersey, so it ended up being an adult small. And for me, when I was that young, it was like a dress on me. It was huge. But that was how I started supporting Villa. And unfortunately, with the hours and the time difference, it does mean that the games are always on at terrible hours for us, like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. So yeah, the hours are a bit tough to support. And when I was younger, it was always hard to watch the games, and you could only watch so many on the weekend. But now it's, I always try and watch when I can. As long as I don't have work the next morning, because then otherwise I feel like a zombie just trying to get through my shift. But yeah, it's obviously it is tough to follow from afar, but it was great when Villa actually came out on their pre-season tour to Australia in 2022. And so I got to follow the guys all around Australia. So they played played one game in Brisbane, one game in Townsville, which is actually where I met the entire team at the airport. It was such an insane experience. I remember I was sort of having breakfast at this little cafe in the airport. And I remember seeing one Villa guy. It was like a Villa shirt, but he was sort of like head to toe in security stuff, like a little like a earpiece and everything. And so I remember seeing him at like a few Villa events beforehand. And so I thought, okay, I'll put my bag down at the table. I'll check around the corner to see where the security was. And there was the entire squad just going through security. I felt like a little kid all over again. So I waited for them to come around security, and then got selfies with all the team, and spoke to a few of the guys, met Stephen Gerrard, who was the manager at the time. Christian Perslow, he was there as well. So it was a crazy experience. I have photos with all of them. That was one of the craziest moments of my life, just seeing all the Villa boys just there at the airport in regional Queensland, which is such a small, in Towns, which is a small town. And then I followed them in Perth when they played Manchester United in front of 60,000 fans. It was a crazy experience. I won a jersey signed by, who was it signed by? Danny Ings, Ezra Konsa, and John McGinn. So that was cool as well. It was just it was an unreal experience. And I think it was a lot of Aussie Villa fans. It was great because I don't think many people know how big the Aussie following for Villa is here. And I think a lot of that has also come from Mark Bosnich, who, as an Aussie was great for Villa, and he's a massive name in Australian football, and got a lot of Aussie fans to fall in love with Villa. So it is a bit of a surprise that we have such a big fan base in Australia, but as the songs always go, Villa's massive everywhere we go.
I don't think it's a massive, but on the other side of the world, there's an Aston Villa fans. It's incredible.
It's crazy just how well supported we are in every country. You sort of look at the pre-season tours that we've been on to America, and we've been to America a lot in the past few years, and there's always great turnouts there. I've been to one supporters club event in New York City when I was visiting once, and that was great fun. Even when we were in the championship, there was massive numbers. So it's just fascinating to see how well Villa are supported. Because even though I think maybe some Villa fans in England might forget, it's just it's a club that even outside of Birmingham is so well supported, and so many people love the club, and they'll travel to England all the way from Australia just to watch one game, and it costs a lot of money. It's a lot of effort to take time off work and to organise travel, but even just to see one game is just incredible. And you can sort of get a few Villa fans where obviously you go to every game, but I think I could be wrong, but maybe some English fans can take it for granted a little bit about, just going to the Villa when you get people traveling from all over the world just to be there for one game. And
I've got a season ticket.
Yeah, it's incredible. I'm so jealous you got a season ticket, especially for this season, because it would be a season of dreams, and I would have loved to have got over there for at least a game or two. But I've been following from afar, and it's just been great. Even though the wake ups for these games aren't always great, it's definitely worth it this season.
Every single pound's important. So moving to the next question. So in Australia, Is football a popular watch sport? Apart
Yeah,
from cricket and
football's
rugby?
definitely not football. I think cricket's very much a summertime sport. In the winter, obviously, you have your rugby league and AFL, which is another massive sport in Australia. Yeah, cricket's always in the summer. It's like you sort of sit around the TV with your mates and family and watch the cricket, or you go to the games and spend the entire day there having a bit of fun. So the summertime cricket's absolutely massive. And the A League is also on during that period, but doesn't really get as much attendance as it would like. And then once the winter rolls around, rugby league is definitely the massive sport that gets a lot of attention here. So it definitely is defined by the seasons. I think it's similar in England as well, where you don't really have. We got like the summer of cricket where England will play touring teams, and then once August sort of rolls around, you really get back into football because the A-League season is not very long here as well. And that's
When does that start?
so it starts around October from memory. It's sort of September, October time, and that sort of rolls through. And I think it's getting close to finishing now. So it'll be done late April, early May. The grand final date slips me. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yes, it means that there is a very, very long off season from May all the way to October without A-League football. But yeah, I think I'd say rugby league's the number one sport in Australia, and then cricket very, very closely second behind.
So who are your favourite Australian footballer?
Oh, it's a very good question.
And all time.
Oh, all time is also really got to think about this one. I think all time would have to be Mile Jedinak, not just because he was a Villa player, but because he was just so iconic and everything about him. He was just such a steely character, and you felt that when he was playing, he was such a tremendous player. And you always felt like when he was in the team, he was going to do something special. So I think with that, I think, all time would have to be Mile Jedinak. Current is a good one because there's lots of players in the current team who sort of all quite likable.
I don't know many Australian players.
I think a player called Jackson Irvine. So he's a midfielder. He plays for St. Pauli in Germany's second division, but he's just such a cool guy. He wears like retro football jerseys all the time. A really, really good midfielder, like box to box. I think he would have come up against Villa a few times when he played in the championship He played for Burton Albion when they were in the championship, and then Hull City for a little bit as well. So I'm sure he would have come up against Villa a few times, but he's just such a silky customer and really, really good all action across the pitch and midfield. So I think he's probably my favourite at the moment, but Mile Jedinak is definitely my favourite Australian player of all time.
Yeah, also over the years, this Australian player, but Harry Kill, not for Viduka.
They've been some absolute legends.
They've got a few good ones I've had.
Yeah, there's been especially a lot of Aussies that have played in England too. Yeah, as you said, Viduka, Kuhl. Matty Ryan was here for a bit. Aaron Moy, who played for Brighton and Huddersfield. Brett Holman as well. He was there for Villa at a very short period. He was a Socceroo he's called Villa home. Really got to try and think if there's been loads over the years. I'm going to forget players.
Tim Cahill.
Of course, I knew I was going to forget him, and he's probably been the most famous Aussie in the Premier League ever. He's iconic, absolutely iconic for Australian football, and he was an unbelievable player for Everton. I wish we had him at Villa because he would have been cracking back in the day.
I'll talk a player again. Who was your favourite? Aston Villa.
I think Lee Hendrie of all time. I think because I have to say him because he's the reason I became a Villa fan. So Lee Hendrie is my favourite Villa player of all time. And then currently, I think Ezri Konsa is just such a cool as a cucumber defender. I don't think he often gets the recognition. And now he's starting to get the recognition he deserves. But even when he first came to Villa in 2019, I thought he was an absolutely unbelievable defender. He was just incredible, winning duels, winning headers. He can do it all now. He's playing right back, even though he's a centre back. He's playing for England, so it's just great to see that he's getting recognised. And Emery clearly trusts him as one of his best defenders. So I think it's. I'm fully on the Ezri Konsa bandwagon, and I'm surprised bigger clubs haven't really come in for him or hasn't been linked with many big clubs. And hopefully,
is he reliable?
Yeah, he's so reliable. I can never really remember him having a terrible game, even under the Steven Gerrard days, which were tough at the best of times. He's been, honestly, a 7 out of 10 player every week, it feels like.
It's how my favourite of the player is. Again, shirt.
Yeah, he's unreal.
John McGinn's vote.
McGinn is. Oh, he's a cracking player. I love him. He's such a character, and he does so much midfield. And the fact is, he's one of the last. I think he's the only player left from the championship days. I could be wrong. There might be one more. I guess Tyrone Mings, if you count him, even though he was on loan. But McGinn was there for. He must be our longest serving player now, but he's just been such an incredible. It's a sort of him and him and Villa together. It's just so great to see those two on that journey together, rising to the top of the Premier League, basically. So McGinn's, he's an unbelievable player.
He's a great captain as well.
Terrific captain.
So I'm going to go to the last question. So what have you thought of Aston Villa this season? And what do you expect from Brentford?
It's been honestly a season of dreams. I think it's. I didn't know what I expected this season. I wanted at least an improvement. So just to get into the Europa League, and I was interested to see how it contend, with playing in Europe as well. And we've done superbly well. And this season's given every Villa fan so many terrific memories. I think my favourite would be just decimating Man City at home at Villa Park. Even though it was 1-0, we just nullified them. They couldn't do anything. And I think I said it at the time, but I think that's the best game and overall performance I've ever seen from a Villa team in my life. And it was just such a superb performance for us to take it to the best team in Europe and pretty much just make Haaland look like a League Two striker. And he couldn't do anything. He had that one chance in the first half early on, and that drew 2 terrific saves from Emi Martinez. But apart from that, City had nothing. So I think it's just been an incredible season, no matter how it finishes. I'd like to think we will get Champions League, and even if it means the top 5 will get Champions League, that also works out quite well. But I think just getting Champions League would be incredible, and it's something that'd be so special for Villa fans to have. As for how we're going against Brentford, they're always a very tricky team, and I think this season they've been better than what their position in the league table shows. But I think I was reading the other day that they've also been the team that's dropped the most points from winning positions. So that is a little bit of a worrying stat for them. I think we'll have a good reaction against Brentford, especially with McGinn coming in. That's going to give a massive lift to everyone in the team. Whether Watkins comes back or not, I don't think it's going to matter too much. Obviously, it'd be great to have him back, but if his hamstring's not 100%, I think we have to rest him. I think Duran needs to start again because we've got a massive run in anyways. We've got games against Arsenal, Liverpool to come. We've got Lille in the Conference League. And so I'd prefer Watkins, even if he's 75%, I'd prefer him to be rested, have Duran go again, can play Zaniolo up front if we need. So I think, Watkins will be a big sort of decision. But if he doesn't play, I still feel confident we'll win.
I don't think I've been told that keeping quiet to win this game, I think.
Yeah, keeping Tony quiet will be massive. And it's annoying because he only needs sort of one moment of magic to just score for Brentford, and they really do have they've got a great team with some great players. We all know, Neil Maupay loves to wind players up, and he's another player we're gonna have to watch out for. We're gonna need some cool heads out in the field, not to get as angry as what happened when we played Brentford earlier in the season when Kamara got sent off and all sort of chaos broke loose. So I think we need some cooler heads out in the field and just know that to not sort of fall into that trap from Brentford and fall into Maupay's sort of antics, and just stay relaxed, stay calm, and we'll be okay.
To win Brentford, you don't know what you get with them, what you're going to get.
Exactly. Against Man United, they were by far the better team, and you sort of look at the score, and we're lucky to just even get a draw with that last minute equaliser from Christopher Aya. So they're a sort of a mixed bag, and I do think they are a better team than what their position on the league table shows. But everyone's on the league where they are in the league for a reason. So it'll be interesting to see what Brentford shows up that day. Hopefully, it's not the best Brentford for our sake, but even if it is the best Brentford, I'm confident we'll get the win.
A little bit like Wolves.
They are a bit like Wolves. Yeah, but I think they've had a terrific season as well, even though they're sort of one of our local rivals. I think we have to give Wolves a bit of credit. Gary O'Neill's, as you said, he's a terrific manager. And with a bit of more investment at Wolves, I'd be worried to see what he could do, given how well they've done this season and how chaotic their start of the season was with all their off-field issues and needing to sell players for FFP purposes. So hopefully Wolves don't get too much investment in the summer, but it's good to see, some teams that aren't the typical ones that are doing well this season.
We're coming towards the end of the podcast. But if you could, Alex, can you spread the word about podcasts?
Absolutely, Chad. Be more than happy to. It's been great being on here and you asking so many great questions, and it's nice to sort of talk about these things, which I don't really get much of an opportunity to. So, mate, it's been fantastic, and thank you so much for having me on. It's been great.
Well, as the middle topics, a rising awareness of Duchenne dystrophy. It inspires other people, and that's why I use my platform.
It's a fantastic way to spread the message, and I'm sure everyone else who's been on the podcast is, loving your work and everything that you do, and mate, your passion for Villa it clearly shows, and it's awesome. It's awesome what you're doing.
Well, to finish off the podcast, can you give me a score prediction for the weekend? The Brentford game.
I know we have a tendency to sort of concede at home, and my home form as of late hasn't been amazing, but I think I'm going to go for 3-1. I think it'll be an interesting game. I think it'll be a little bit nervy at times, but I think once we settle in, I think we'll be okay, and we'll dominate the game towards the end. But it's going to be a very nerve-wracking first half. I think both teams will score in the first half, and then in the second half, Emery's going to make a few adjustments, and we'll come home strong.
Well, that's all we got time for this episode. Thank you everyone for watching. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give this video a like and share. If you haven't, please subscribe. Remember to make sure to click the bell icon so you don't miss out on new content. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you so much, Alex, for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Chad. I know it's taken us a while to get to here, but thank you so much for having me, mate. It's been fantastic and been a great privilege to be on the podcast.
Well, I'm going to run this episode with the Villa.
Up the Villa.